Also, always. And so at last we come to the Archon. You knew it was bound to happen. Over a few weeks, I've been really taking some time to look through the list and sort of kind of purify my concepts and ideas about the army as a whole. They don't play much different than they did in previous editions, I don't think. But what we do have in the Archon is the epicenter of your force. This is my Archon right here that I sort of put together from a few bits from the Dark Elf box and some Dark Eldar bits too. That being said, as an Archon you wield incredible power. They are the Dark Princes, Dukes, Duchess, Kings, Lords, Sultans of the Dark City of Komara. They have untold power and influence. They are always a target, so usually once you've reached Archon status, you're probably one of the most calculating and altogether vile beings in the warp, or within the webway. The way the Archon functions is sort of an attack dog, how I like to run mine in my list. You start out at 60 points. They've got a fantastic stat line at weapon skill 7, ballistic skill 7, strength 3, tough 3, weapon skill 3, initiative 7. They've got 4 attacks, leadership 10 of course, and a 5+ save due to their Kabbalite armor. Again, they're elves, so they're strength 3, tough 3. They've got quite a few ways to improve that. The Archon does have power from pain. He does not have combat drugs. I believe he had combat drugs in the last edition. Don't quote me. Splinter pistol, close combat weapon, plasma grenades, great. Fleet, independent character, night vision, all the standards. He can have a husk blade for 25 points. Pretty much an AP power weapon, AP3, instant death if you fail a save or something like that. You can give him a blaster pistol or a blaster, pretty much a melt-a-gun. Melee weapons, which means a power weapon, Agonizer. Agonizer is a pretty good choice, pretty good option, because for the most part, the Agonizer is, you can always do some real damage with an Agonizer. An Agonizer is always gonna make someone hurt and feel some real serious pain, regardless of their toughness, regardless of his strength. And strength is always kind of an issue for the Dark Eldar. Awesome thing is he can also take a Venom. He or she can also take a Venom. I have several Archon, female Archon models in my army. As a matter of fact, why not I show you one while we're talking? Because again, in the Dark City, sex is something that you do as opposed to what you are. Or what you have. There she is. One of my favorites. She's got a blaster pistol and she had a Venom blade at one point because you could have Venom blades back in the last edition, but no biggie. Let's continue. They can have arcane war gear, which is a whole slew of things. We'll talk about that in a minute. And of course, artifacts of cruelty, which they can also have, and we'll kind of expand on that a bit. This will be a little bit of a longer video because the Archon, I think, is a very important unit that you have to be very mindful of and take a really serious approach on how you're going to field them. As you can see, my Archon is surrounded by Incubi because, it's just kind of how I roll. I'm going to oftentimes bring an Archon in a Venom, which they can have now. You can bring an Archon, you can upgrade an Archon with a Venom. I believe it takes up one of your fast attack choices. I'm not sure. For some reason, Army Builder puts the Venom that I choose from my Archon as a fast attack slot. So, that's neither here nor there. How I run them is, more often than not, I'm going to run my Archon with a Shadow Field and an Agonizer. They start out at 60 points. The Shadow Field, I believe, is another 35. And then the Agonizer is another 25. So you've got a pretty survivable guy that can go in and handle any kind of toughness on any kind of character. Throw some haywire grenades in there as well for just a little added, you know, you never really know. It's only 5 points, and you never really know when you get a chance to kind of sling one of those at something and blow something up, you know, or scratch off an arm, you know, armor point, or hull point, armor value, whatever. It's the same thing. That being said, let's start talking about some of this arcane war gear. They have options to the arcane war gear list, and arcane war gear is something that you're going to really be very considerate about. They can have a clone field, which basically gives them a 4+ invulnerable save. It's a little cheaper than the shadow field, which it clocks in at 35. The clone field, I believe, is 20 points. Let's go back to this page here. Yeah, the clone field itself is 20 points. Right, it's funny. The shadow field gives you 2+ invulnerable save, but it goes out if you fail, and it's a little bit more expensive. It's 40 points, so I believe it got raised in point value from last edition. Don't quote me, but again, I believe it was 35 back in the day. But these are stock. These are standard. The webway portal allows you to deep strike your unit without scattering, so that's always awesome. You know, you can bring your Archon in on a boat with, say, some Kabbalite warriors, hop down and shred guys with splinter racks. You know, it just really depends on how you feel like you want to run your Archon. I've run Archons like that before. Back in 3rd edition, I ran Archons on bikes, but you know, we won't worry about that. Continuing on, they can have a webway portal. We talked about that. Shadow field, Phantasm grenade launcher, which is, I believe it causes leadership, someone in the group to take a leadership test. Let's find out for certain. Phantasm grenade launcher. Isn't it an arcane war gear? Must be someplace else. I'm not really sure what the Phantasm grenade launcher does. I don't want to lead you guys astray. Okay, yeah, it's an 18-inch range. Pretty much, it's a ranged shot, strength 1, assault 1, blast, soul fright. Yeah, so yeah, you have to make a leadership test, and you lose wounds based upon how far you lose the leadership test by, which is, you know, kind of cool, but the Phantasm grenade launcher back in the last edition allowed you to sort of pretty much charge into units with cover and not worry about your the negatives to the initiative. Continuing on, haywire grenades, we talked about that too. Soul trap, which basically gives you a +1 strength every time you do a wound to a character in a challenge. It pretty much serves the same role that it served back in 5th edition, excuse me, where you were just running around the board trying to kill someone's main character so you can get beefed up. I remember some of my earliest games, I would run with a Husk Blade and a Soul Trap, go out, murder somebody, get goosed up to like strength 9, and then go tank hunting with my Archon, just slapping tanks around like, I don't care, you know, just completely juiced up. So that's always kind of fun if you want to go in that direction. Artifacts of cruelty are always interesting too. The Parasite's Kiss, coming in at 5 points. Let's dive in and see a little bit more about the Parasite's Kiss. I want to say that's a weapon. It's like a shot weapon or something like that. Yeah, it's a 12-inch range, strength 1, AP 5, pistol, master crafted, and poison 2+, soul leech, which pretty much means each time you the bearer inflicts an unsaved wound with the Parasite's Kiss, it immediately gains 1 wound lost previously in that battle. So that's kind of cool. You know, it's kind of cheap, 5 points, and you know, you walk up to some pointless Joe and shoot him with the Parasite's Kiss and get a wound back. I mean, I don't know. It could have its uses. The Armor of Misery, yes. Armor of Misery, for the most part, it gives you 4+ armor save and a 6+ invulnerable save and the Fear special rule. And all enemies within 6 inches of the bearer suffer a -2 to their leadership penalty. So you're starting to see how the Dark Eldar are starting to have Fear become more, you know, aspect of the army And there are ways that you can build your army, I'm sure, where, you know, your opponent's leadership values are just in peril. Against orcs, you're just, you know, you could get guys down to some pretty legitimate leadership based on the war gear that you choose. That's always cool. The Animus Vitae. Yeah, it's a ranged attack. 8 inches. Strength 4. AP 2. This feels very homunculus, but it's an assault 1 and agonizing and 1 use only. If any agonizing means if any unsaved wound is inflicted to the Animus Vitae, all models of the Power from Pain special rule treat the current turn as being 1 higher than it actually is when determining special rules they benefit from. There's very few. There are quite a few. Not very few. Quite a few. Pieces of war gear and items in this list that bump up the turn for the Power from Pain rules, and more often than not, they're all cumulative. So you could really just stack out a unit or an army list that has, like, you know, they're treating Power from Pain like it's already turn 3. Boom, here we come, which is kind of cool actually. It's actually not that hard to do. A detachment here, a homunculus there, you know. It's really, really doable. Let's keep going. Let's see. We talked about the Animus Vitae. Archangel of Pain. Once per game, the bearer can open the Archangel of Pain instead of firing a weapon in the shooting phase. And again, when he does, each enemy hit within 9 inches of him must take a leadership test with a -2 penalty. Again, you know, a -2 penalty to leadership. Lots of leaderships going on down here. Again, some of this artifacts of cruelty I have no real interest in right now, straight off for my Archon and my 1500 point list that I'm building. We still want to keep the points sort of down, but as close to 160-ish as we can. So right now we got 60 points on the Archon himself, 40 on the Shadow Field, and another 25 at least on the Agonizer, maybe another 5 on the Haywire Grenade. So we're rocking at about maybe 130 points right now. So that's not too bad, you know, for a guy that's just, or a gal that can just come up and smack something in the face and then throw a bomb and blow something up and then survive. I don't particularly need a weapon. I might give myself the Parasite's Kiss. You know, it's not a blaster, no. But I can go out and pick somebody off and maybe stay alive or something like that. If I lost a wound in a combat, a turn or a go, I can go back and get that wound and then, you know, go back into the fight. That kind of stuff. I don't know. Whatever. Moving on. Helm of Spite. Yeah. Pretty much Helm of Spite. Again, friendly units within the with the Dark Eldar faction within 12 inches of the bearer have Adamantium Wheel. Special rule. And Adamantium Will, just to be certain. Again, as I'm building the list, I'm constantly referencing books because some of the rules are new to me too. Again, I'm really sort of returning back to the game, so I like looking up rules too. And I've got the book sitting right in front of me, so there's really no real honest reason as to why I can't, you know, share my experience with you in that sense. Adamantium Will, pretty much +1 bonus on to the Night of Witch tests. Rock and roll. You know, when we're fighting against our, you know, our light kin, that would help. But I'm gonna have some Eldar, you know, Craft World Eldar elements in the future. We'll see. And finally, the Jin Blade, which was one of my personal favorites from the last edition. Pretty much, it's a power weapon, AP3 melee sentient blade, and what that means is the wielder gains +2 bonus attacks immediately after resolving all of the attacks made with this weapon. Roll a d6. On a result of 1, the model using this weapon immediately suffers a single wound. No saves of any kind allowed. So, use at your own risk. Anyways, I think that's kind of where we are with the Archon. They're very strong. You can tailor them the way you want. You can have one sitting around on a raider with a group of you know, Kabbalite warrior shooting the shit out of something. Excuse my language, but that's really kind of how you can describe it. Or you can have one that's built specifically to go in and charge and dominate someone's either infantry or special characters. It really depends on how you want to build it. I like to specialize. I try not to make the Archon be or shooty and chargy. It's kind of chargy or shooty. And I tend to get, you know, the most success out of those specific builds. Anyway, that's where we are right now with the Archon. See you next time.